Hello, welcome everyone. Hello, bienvenidos, buen día, buenas tardes. Thank you so much for joining our session on nature-based solutions, and welcome to our focus on the Americas. This first session will highlight different cases on how the region Latin America and the Caribbean is innovating different approaches for nature-based solutions, from governance to finance to community engagement. And I'm honored to be moderating this session. My name is Shogofa Rizai. I'm an Associate Professional Officer at the Inter-American Development Bank under the Climate Change Solutions Division. And I focus on adaptation, climate change, and resilient infrastructure. So this topic is very exciting, and I'm very honored to be here together with my Water and Sanitation Division colleagues. First of all, para todos, aquí hay una aplicación que pueden bajar. So feel comfortable to choose either Spanish or English, because we will have some interactions in both English and Spanish. So for anybody who might have challenges following in Spanish, please download this scan the QR code to access both languages. Maybe just a quick feel in the room, how many of you don't understand Spanish? Okay, so I guess I'll stick to the more comfortable language for me, which is English, pero igual, siéntanse libres de escoger español para los que quieran. Okay, so also a little advertisement for the IDB. This is like a shared venue, right? Like with all our partners. So we're very happy to have all the conveners here, and you will have the opportunity to meet all the panelists and speakers during our networking event and mingle on Wednesday after our last session on climate finance on Wednesday. So please join us at the Focus on the Americas phone booth. So the first person that I would like to introduce is Genna Agami, who's the Director of Global Water Initiative at Forest Trends. And I'm pleased to introduce you, and I can only say from my own experience hearing about your recent report, I'm sure you have a lot of highlights on nature-based solutions and finance. So I'm just trying to set the stage for this exciting session today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the session. So my role here is to set the stage, as Shogofa said, for these really interesting case studies that we're going to hear from, by just providing context of, what are nature-based solutions broadly, and what are the major trends that we're seeing globally and in the Latin American region in investment in nature-based solutions for water security. And for that, I'll be drawing from a report that we published earlier this year with the Nature Conservancy, and I've put some little promo materials on the tables there so that you can find kind of our key findings and also where to download the report. But let's jump in. So I think we've seen nature-based solutions all over this conference so far. I think most of us are familiar with what they mean. But in general, what we mean by these is we're looking for strategies that allow us to harness the power of healthy ecosystems to allow us to manage water risks. So we know that when we have grasslands or forests or wetlands or even working agricultural lands that are healthy, where the soils are protected and conserved, we can improve water quality by filtering pollutants. We can reduce runoff and flooding during storms. That hydrological regulation also helps us to recharge groundwater and improve dry season flows. We can lower disaster risks like flooding and landslides by kind of buffering the climatic extremes that we're seeing even more now with climate change. And of course, we're generating co-benefits also. So there's carbon sequestration, there's biodiversity habitat, there's support for livelihoods. And we'll see a lot of those examples in the case studies that will be presented. In Latin America also, we see a lot, as we do in some other places around the world, of kind of interaction between nature-based solutions where we're protecting and restoring and managing ecosystems with indigenous technologies. So with technologies that allow us to do managed aquifer recharge through techniques that have been used for over 1,000 years, terracing that allows us to conserve soil, and so forth. So they're very closely connected. So now that we know what we're talking about, what we found globally is that this is not at all a small solution in the water space. In 2023, we found $49 billion invested in nature-based solutions for water security globally. with pretty strong growth. That was about a doubling of what it had been 10 years before. We found in different regions around the world, including in Latin America, growth was a bit higher than the global average of 2x growth. In Latin America, it was about 2.5. About 97% of the investment globally is done by governments investing domestically, so this is a lot of public funding. We also saw significant increases in the role of multilateral development banks and foreign assistance in this time period, in increases in user-driven investments, so those who directly benefit from conservation of their own watershed through their water supplies, like utilities or cities, and significant growth by the private sector, especially when it was supported and facilitated by regulation. So diving into what we see in Latin America, there's a few things that I wanted to highlight. So here, multilateral finance was also very strong and growing. About 53% of the total investment in 2023 came from those sources, and with some really interesting projects that have happened, really big GCF project in Argentina in our data set. And we're going to hear about more of that coming on board in the session today, which is really exciting. We also found in some places really significant domestic government spending. So for a long time in Latin America, countries like Mexico, Ecuador, Costa Rica have had national payments for ecosystem services programs that have been real hallmarks in the region. And those have been consistent. A lot of them have incorporated kind of matching funding opportunities for local governments and others to participate. But we're also seeing some really interesting trends that mirror the global trends, where we're seeing real increases in investment in nature as infrastructure. So in Peru, for example, where I've done a lot of work, we saw 75 million in public investment. That's all domestic resources. That was 7x growth over the prior decade, and that was really facilitated by this kind of change in the public investment system that allows it to see nature as infrastructure and to invest accordingly. We also saw increases in user-driven investments, about $30 million of that in 2023. And some of that channeled through water funds. There's now 32 water funds throughout Latin America that we tracked. So this is just to say there has been a lot going on for a long time in Latin America, nature-based solutions in a lot of ways, like the Quito Water Fund has been one of the hallmarks that has really inspired a lot of other water funds around the world. Latin America has been inspirational, and I hope it will continue to be that way. I think some of the cases that we'll hear today will definitely bring us in that direction. So I think the real question to us is, how do we look at these trends and understand how we can leverage different sources of finance to be able to really scale, institutionalize, and work together across these different sectors to ensure that we are delivering real impact at the watershed scale and really seeing our water security and resilience increase. So I'll leave it there. Thank you again so much, and I'm looking forward to the session.
Thank you, Jenna. Very inspiring to hear from you, and thank you for setting the stage, not only on what nature-based solutions are, and also what, I heard you say is the power of healthy ecosystems. I think that's really key, and also understanding the co-benefits and financing. Good to hear that financing from MDBs is increasing, so good news. But maybe we want to hear what are successful examples next from some of our speakers, and I will introduce first Franz Rojas, and just for a brief context, we will have the next segment as speed talk dialogues. So we will have different cases, and I would also kindly ask to stick within really a speedy talk, so we can hear all the cases and have some time for a nice interaction afterwards, where we will dive deeper into the lessons learned from those cases. So Franz Rojas will join us online. He's the Director of Water and Sanitation within CAF, the Development Bank for Latin America and the Caribbean. So welcome, Franz, bienvenido, y gracias. Te paso la palabra. I guess we will wait a second for Franz to connect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. Can you hear me well and see the slides? Yeah? Hello?
Yes.
Okay,
We can hear you.
Well, okay, thank you. And I hope you are seeing my screen as well. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Because of what Gina mentioned in Latin America, we have been moving very fast in the region with the nature-based solution. So we have at CAF different examples that we have been supporting, financing different projects, especially in Brazil, in Sobral and Niterói with filtering gardens. But the idea to share with you is that we are also working in a methodological framework to foster nature-based solutions and water security. So what we have been doing, working with TNC, is to develop a methodology around 4 analytical dimensions. The biophysical, that regards to spatial analysis of terrain, climate, soil, and land cover using global data sheets. The idea is to have a basing approach mainly, and with the different data information, for instance, precipitation, temperature, and others coming from World Clim, and others like the type of soil coming from ESA World Cover, and also the basins with hydrosheds and others that are open source that we can use. And this is the first dimension. And then we also have the second dimension on technical aspects, the evaluation of nature-based solutions under water security challenges like floods, scarcity, sediment, concentration, and nutrient pollution. The third one that could be understandable is the financial aspects, including the reference cost for each of our nature-based solutions lists. We have developed, or we have a list of 21, 22 type of projects of nature-based solutions. So this is a list, and according to different examples in Latin America, we have examples from 2 or 3 countries, and trying to develop a list with the international, using international index to apply to different countries. And the fourth one that could be, as you can see, the environmental aspects and the assessment of nature-based solutions to 25 broader challenges. So at the end, these 4 dimensions have key features, and the tool adopts watershed scale approach, reinforcing integrated water resource management with, as I said, preloaded global data sets for all Latin America, customizable prioritization based on local knowledge, the alignment with CAF taxonomy that we have for green financing eligibility, and the exportable outputs for planning, reporting, and stakeholder engagement. So with these 4 methodologies, what we are doing, we are developing a digital tool that first we need to have the data entry of the project. I mean, where it is, the type of solution, which are the main challenges, if it's for flood control or for drought management or for contamination. And this information and the objectives are part of the project data entry. Then we move to watershed scale characterization with automatic delineation using elevation models, the biophysical sustainability analysis with using different algorithms to identify optimal nature-based solutions locations, and also the challenges prioritization using different tools suggested on the data that we have developed with different examples, and then the implementation by concluding with the technical and financial evaluation with a combination of metrics, and at the end, the environmental analysis. Summarizing, we have a final output of a prioritized list of nature-based solutions that could be applied to this project, and we are developing exportable outputs with automated reports like project summary, list of prioritized nature-based solutions with scores, and the rationale behind this following a technical and also institutional instruments. So this is a methodology that we are planning to develop as part of our water security strategy in order to foster nature-based solutions in the region, and as we expect to have more projects including nature-based solutions. As you know, our projects come from the requests from the governments. So the main idea is to develop and to disseminate this methodology within the countries. I mean, make the governments ask us about including nature-based solutions as part of their projects. And with this methodology, we expect to have a spatially distributed tool. This is the software that enables CAF, but also the governmental agencies to identify nature-based solutions, to build technical capacity, not only in the governments, but also as in part of our team as CAF to have an effective use of tool, and a theoretical guide outlining the methodological framework along with a user manual for the tool. So we expect to have this tool by the end of this year in order to disseminate the next year. So thank you very much for your attention, and very keen to listen to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Franz. It was very great to hear from you also how CAF is advancing on science and methodologies to support decision-making on prioritizing nature-based solutions. Thank you. Next, I will present Mariana Rodriguez, Project Director at GIZ in Mexico, who will show us a very different perspective, but I'm excited to hear about your case as well. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone here in the room. Good morning to our colleagues and friends joining from Latin America to this session. So let me share with you a public-private initiative between the German International Development Corporation, AB InBev Grupo Modelo, and the Coca-Cola Company. So through this case, we want to go beyond solutions, building lasting impact for our shared learning and collective action. So why are we working where we are working? Why did this project start? So we are looking to ensure water security as one of Mexico's key priorities. And we see that recent studies show that 2 out of 3 Mexican states where the project is working will face water scarcity by 2050. Among these are Zacatecas, Hidalgo, and Mexico City. And as we have learned in several sessions during the week here, water resilience is a prerequisite for financial feasibility. So if we don't do enough for that, we will see important investments leave some countries. So these projections highlight the urgency of developing sustainable and locally adapted responses to groundwater stress. The Mexican government, it's important to highlight here, is prioritizing environmental policy and has launched a national water plan last year going until 2030 is one of the first priorities of the Mexican government. And our actions in the project are guided by the strategic pillars of the plan promoted by the National Water Commission, CONAGUA. So we believe that public-private collaboration is key to sustainable solutions, and we have seen it's difficult to mobilize private investment for this type of projects, but this is proof that it is possible and worthwhile doing. So, what is Aguas Firmes? Aguas Firmes launched in 2021 with the support from the Develop PPP program of the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. It's an initiative implemented by the German Development Corporation with contributions from AB InBev, Grupo Modelo, and in its second phase, Industria Mexicana de Coca-Cola. As part of the Aguas Firmes project, we have aligned our actions, as I said, with the priorities of CONAGUA, looking towards multiplying impacts across Mexico to advance sustainable water management. So this alliance brings together public institutions, companies, and most importantly, communities, farmers, local residents, to improve groundwater management. As you see, allow me to share with you a quote from a female farmer. You see, in Mexico, you have very few farmers, female farmers, so it's very inspiring to have this quote where Nora shares with us how the project has positively transformed the region in Zacatecas. The reservoirs have helped bring water, there is abundant wildlife, and the landscape looks completely different from how it used to be. So Aguas Firmes seeks to build long-term impact by aligning visions, strengthening local ownership, which makes a difference for long-lasting impact. So I will quickly move on to our pillars. So through these 5 pillars, we want to have to drive a systemic change. And first, in nature-based solutions that enhance aquifer recharge through ecological restoration. Second, sustainable agriculture and irrigation efficiency with farmers, helping them adopt sustainable agricultural practices. Third, financial inclusion to support farmers' transition towards sustainable agriculture. Fourth, robust monitoring and evaluation systems so that we can demonstrate the impact that these actions are having on the ground. And of course, collective action, ensuring long-term sustainability through shared decision-making among institutions, communities, and the private sector. We have learned that we have to work with nature to effectively manage water risks. And we have seen that systemic impact of nature-based solutions and sustainable agriculture. What you see here in this picture, these are stone walls that contribute to increased erosion. With time, they become in terraces that improve the humidity of the soil and then the power of the soil to promote infiltration. And this is having a major impact to the benefit of the aquifers where we are working. In the first phase, that started with AB InBev Grupo Modelo, we achieved a potential infiltration of 6 million cubic meters in the 2 aquifers where we started. Now we are going in a scaling up phase, going into Mexico City, where we want to triple our impact. So our goal in the first phase were 2 million cubic meters, and we tripled that, that goal. And now we want to achieve 6 million cubic meters in the 3 aquifers where we are working. And well, there are some figures on the amount of investment. So in the first phase, there were 9.5 million between German cooperation and AB InBev Grupo Modelo. And in the second phase, we have reached joining forces with Coca-Cola to $14.4 million. So we see that leveraging joint financial and technical support, the project is shaping a replicable model for sustainable groundwater management across Mexico. So here you will see, we would like to share with you some publications. Here you see the QR codes. So if you want to hold your cameras, and then you can have access to this literature, or you can, of course, join me after the session if you have some questions. A pleasure to share these lessons and this experience with all of you. And in the questions now, the representative from National Water Commission of Mexico can answer some of those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mariana. And also, I'm happy to hear that, you know, for those of you who like cerveza, they don't associate it only with Modelo de Beer anymore, but actually with a great initiative that seems very impactful. Thank you. Transitioning to the next little speaker panel. So we have different perspectives that will be presented and guided by the Organization of the American States, led by Mark Lambertus. Hello, welcome on the stage, who's the Director of the Department of Sustainable Development. And I pass the word to you, and enjoy this little panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Shagofa, and for what is the session supposed to be speed talks, ours are going to be called hyperspeed talks because we're going to try to cram 3 talks in 7 minutes. So I will really quickly introduce our experts and then get out of the way. As Shagofa suggested, I'm the director for the Department of Sustainable Development, the Organization of American States. We're the political organization for all the countries of the Americas, and at the OAS we work with countries across the region working on water projects in particular to integrate nature-based solutions into water and sanitation, linking ecosystem restoration, erosion control, and water quality improvements with governance, infrastructure, and community participation. But the exciting aspect of this talk will be with our 3 examples. First in Mexico, where Conagua's Crew Plus project strengthens community water governance in the Mayacan, Quintana Roo, And next, in the Trifinio region of Central America, where El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras work together to restore shared watersheds. And finally, in Bogota, where the water and sewage utility embeds nature-based solutions into water security strategies. So I'm pleased to bring to the stage Giovanni Melgar and from Conagua, and Natasha Avendaño, General Manager of Bogota's Water Sewage Utility, and Lizeth Hernandez, Secretary General of the Trinational Commission of the Trifinio Plan, is joining us online. So why don't we come up and we'll go right into this. I'll hand over the mic to Giovanni. We'll hear quickly from Lizeth virtually, and then close with you, Natasha, please. Giovanni, go ahead.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y a todas. En verdad, para el sector público, dirigido por la presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum, tanto como por la directora general de la Conagua y la maestra Paola Félix Díaz, coordinadora general del acuerdo, es sumamente importante la relación entre el sector público y el sector privado. En el caso de Aguas Firmes, que bien presentó Mariana, la colaboración ha permitido, uno, la movilización de recursos que posiblemente entre el sector público y privado de forma disasociada no se hubieran podido conjuntar. Aproximadamente se cuenta ya con una inversión de 14.4 millones de dólares que han sido destinados para los estados de Zacatecas, de Hidalgo y de la Ciudad de México. Dos, la implementación a gran escala de los sistemas basados en la naturaleza, incluyendo la conservación de suelos, la reforestación y, por supuesto, la recarga de los mantos acuíferos, que, como también decía muy bien Mariana, ha permitido que 6 millones de metros cúbicos de infiltración en su primera fase, lo cual triplicó el objetivo inicial. Y tercero, la gobernanza territorial. Obviamente no podemos concebir las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza sin poder también tener una herramienta que empodere a las comunidades, que fomente la participación de ellas y, sobre todo, puede incluirla en la toma de las decisiones. Este modelo ha demostrado que las asociaciones público-privadas van más allá del financiamiento. Esto nos permite también tener soluciones ambientales innovadoras e integradas. También nos permite tener experiencia técnica, crear prioridades comunitarias en conjunto, también alentar los compromisos corporativos, ¿por qué no? Y también avanzar todos hacia un objetivo común, que es la seguridad hídrica y la resiliencia de los ecosistemas. Por último, como bien comentaba, el Acuerdo Nacional por el Derecho Humano al Agua, esta herramienta que firmó la presidenta el año pasado, permita que todo esto se alinee en las acciones y con principios que todos tenemos la certeza de que son los mejores principios, que son las de equidad, sustentabilidad y gobernanza colaborativa. Y ojalá este programa de Aguas Firmes pueda servir como ejemplo para que se siga replicando en nuestro país, en América Latina, en el Caribe y, por supuesto, en todo el mundo. Muchas gracias.
Lizeth, if you would like to join us now. Perfect.
Muchas gracias por la invitación para participar en este importante evento. Desde la Comisión Internacional del Plan Trifinio trabajamos en la restauración de ecosistemas y en la protección de los recursos que actualmente ya cuenta el territorio. Y para ubicarnos un poquito, Centroamérica es rico en diferentes ecosistemas y en la región del Trifinio, que son 7.541 kilómetros cuadrados en las zonas fronterizas entre Honduras, Guatemala y El Salvador, compartimos 3 grandes cuencas y muy importantes para el desarrollo socioeconómico de los 3 países, 17 áreas protegidas nacionales, una reserva de biosfera trinacional y tenemos 2 acuíferos compartidos. Eso significa que nuestra agenda se basa principalmente en la conservación de suelo, agua, bosque y biodiversidad, esperando respuestas muy positivas para la población y poder generar ingresos y empleos. A partir de esta agenda institucional y territorial, pues hemos trazado diferentes experiencias a lo largo de los años y ahí sí hemos concentrado muchas acciones de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza como este mecanismo para generar impactos más sociales y, por supuesto, la conservación ambiental a partir de la generación de bienestar de la población. Y hemos recuperado áreas que estaban en total degradación y de una forma acelerada, haciéndole frente también a esos desafíos de la contaminación, incendios forestales, el cambio de uso de suelo. Y otro aspecto importante es la mejora en la calidad de agua y la biodiversidad. Y nos hemos concentrado en los últimos años con una cartera de proyectos de más de 24 millones de dólares que buscan concentrarnos en estos temas y que generan empleo y desarrollo económico a nivel de las comunidades de más de 1 millón de habitantes. Y hoy podemos compartir con gran orgullo que hemos logrado más de 400,000 hectáreas recuperadas en zonas de amortiguamiento en las áreas protegidas nacionales y reserva de biosfera y una disminución de pérdida de erosión de más de 40,000 toneladas de suelo en los últimos 3 años, según la última medición que hicimos. Esto significa que todas las tecnologías y las prácticas que se están impulsando, tanto para la conservación de la calidad de agua como la disminución de la erosión de suelo, están generando cambios importantes en el paisaje del territorio. Y eso pues nos ayuda muchísimo a el incremento de la biodiversidad, la resiliencia de la población y por supuesto a mejorar la inversión del sector público, del sector de cooperación para el desarrollo y el involucramiento de las comunidades rurales que son las que cuidan este patrimonio territorial. Más adelante estoy dispuesta para compartir con ustedes otras preguntas de forma muy amplia. Muchísimas gracias.
Okay, so now my turn to the speed talk. I'm just gonna go really quick over the Bogota's water security strategy. We had in 2024 the driest year in 40 years in our main system of water supply in Bogota. And we turned a crisis into an opportunity. And what we did is we designed a water security strategy that has 7 pillars, which is what you're looking at now on the screen. And we've been able to do this with the international cooperation. So those 7 pillars are basically the strategy that we want to improve, or we want for improving the system, the resiliency of Bogota. The Bogota Water Company has been working on watershed conservation for ages. We own around half of the high wetland of Chingasa, where is our main water supply system located. And we are also including this in this water security strategy, the watershed conservation as part of the pillars for the hydric security. So those 6 other pillars are more on the infrastructure, the modeling of our supply system, of finding and trying to find new alternatives. All the water in Bogota is superficial water. We don't use groundwater. We never use groundwater as an alternative because we thought we had a lot of superficial water until we didn't. And last year, we had to go into a rationing process over a year to try to make the water to be enough for the following rainy period. We went through a crisis, but when we used this crisis, not only to understand where were the vulnerabilities that we had as a system, but also how to prepare better the city for the future. And that's how this was born. So we are assessing also the groundwater potential. We are working in something that is very noted for the case of Colombia. I know in the war, we've been working a lot on reuse and the potential of reuse, but we are trying to get an infrastructure and business case for reuse of water, of wastewater, treated wastewater, for uses that don't need to be potable use. We are also working in management losses, and we are having, with the help of international cooperation, of course, the operational protocol for drought management. And with all of this, there's something very important, that is the governance of water. We have, in the Trifino area, we have different parts of the country that are where our water from Bogota comes from. And the difficulty of this is to be able to manage how people use the water for not only potable water consumption, but for the other uses that is needed. And this conversation is important because we need to be able to establish what are the decisions that we need to make when we have another crisis. So I just wanted to show you in this slide how are we working through this. As I said, we started to design these because we had a crisis, and what we need to do for the future is to have this security strategy set, and the recommendation is that every single city in the world should have a water security strategy, because it is difficult to start one when you are in the middle of a crisis, but it's a great opportunity to be able to support this resiliency for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those three very complementary perspectives from what we just heard, urban water challenges and very concrete solutions towards trinational approaches, and also community-based innovation. So I'm very impacted by those cases. Thank you for sharing. As a next speed talk, we have Micaela Carvajal, who is joining us from as a water and climate specialist from TNC, Nature for Conservancy. So welcome, Micaela. She will show us adaptation pathways in the Amazon basin. So I'm excited to hear more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shagofa. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the regional study that we did in TNC. And we wanted to study, actually, like how can nature-based solutions promote adaptation pathways in the Amazon basin. And first I want to, oops, sorry. So the first thing that I want to tell you is like, why did we choose the Amazon basin? And it's because it covers over 6 million square kilometers, spanning 8 countries, and then hosting the largest freshwater system in the world. It produces the so-called flying rivers, which are massive flows of water vapor that regulate rainfall patterns around South America. And here we saw that if we implement nature-based solutions at the continental scale, preserving forests and regulating water, we will have like a very ripple effects that will benefit the entire hemisphere. But how is climate change impacting the Amazon? It's actually impacting this delicate balance in water cycles. We're seeing more intense rainfall concentrated in shorter periods, triggering floods that devastate cities and rural communities, but at the same time, prolonged dry seasons causing historic droughts, which affect navigation routes, fisheries, and threaten hydropower and agriculture as well. So these extremes are not isolated events. Flood and drought have repeatedly happened in the last years, making traditional water management insufficient. This is where we see that nature-based solutions become not only an option, but a necessity. So when water flows change, as an example with extended droughts, life changes with it. Floodplain forests fail to regenerate, fish breeding cycles are disrupted, and iconic species such as like the big river dolphins in the Amazon lose their habitats. But it's not only biodiversity who's facing these life changes, but it's also indigenous people and fisheries communities that lose food security, cultural identity, and livelihoods. It is important to mention here that over 45 million people in the Amazon depend directly on its water resources. And what we actually did is to provide this multi-layered analysis that overlaps climate risk maps with data linked with local livelihoods, indigenous territories, as well as fishing points. These multi-layered maps result on better understanding of the potential impacts on local populations, which means that the decrease in flow coincides with high population density, accentuating the risks to human and ecological well-being. In both maps, the first one on the left, it's, we're seeing like the risks, the climate risks mapped with indigenous territories, and in the second one, we see the fishing points where climate change is impacting. And in both maps, we see that the decrease in flow is actually impacting the most populated areas. Again, sorry to repeat, but it's like impacting fisheries, livelihood, water security, and then local communities as a whole. So what we wanted to do with this study is to showcase the potential in square kilometers to implement protection, restoration, and improved management NBS strategies. So, we pictured the whole map to have an overview or where can we have repair and restoration activities, to reconnect rivers and floodplains, wetland conservation strategies to store water during floods and to release it during droughts, and also where can we improve and implement agroforestry systems to stabilize soils and maintain flows. And this is like a very technical and complicated study, but like the 6 major conclusions and learnings that we've had so far, because we want to use this science-based evidence to promote and recommend policy recommendations, is the 6 that you're seeing on the screen. The first one is that connectivity matters. Water flows, species, and communities depend on these biocorridors. Thus, maintaining freshwater and territorial connectivity is key to foster resilience in the Amazon. The second one is to strengthen indigenous governance. Local stewards of nature-based solutions and adaptation strategies should be the local communities, because as we saw in the maps that I showed you earlier, they're the most impacted, but they're also the ones who bring local traditional knowledge, and also they can be the co-creators of these adaptation strategies that we are promoting. The third one is that we should protect what's still intact, so strengthening protected areas management to prevent more expensive fixes later. The fourth one is to restore key water regulation areas, prioritizing headwaters, riparian zones, floodplains, and wetlands. The fifth one is to improve agricultural practices, acknowledging that regenerative farming reduces pressure on forests and water systems. And then the sixth one is to understand that even though nature-based solutions can be a great tool and vehicle to promote these adaptation pathways, they are not enough. They should be part of a greater framework where we have policy, transboundary cooperation, and then also a mix between green and gray infrastructure. So to wrap things up, I just want to conclude with the fact that this case study in the Amazon shows us that water security, climate resilience, and biodiversity cannot be separated. Therefore, investing in nature-based solutions and seeing the potential in square kilometers that our study showed is not only working in local adaptation, but it's working in continental insurance for the future of the Amazon basin and the ecosystems and people that rely on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Micaela. Also, very inspiring case highlighting connectivity as a key theme for this speed talk. So maybe just 1 second to see if everybody is still with us. Just a quick raise of hands. How many of you are working towards driving nature-based solutions in your contexts? I guess we have many practitioners present here. I would say 2/3 of the room at least. And how many of you are working with these topics outside of Latin America? At least 1/3, maybe even half. So I'm happy you're still with us, even though, some things might have got lost in translation in Spanish. So thank you, good to know. Maybe transitioning now to our next speaker, Gisela Murugarra. who is the country director for Water for People in Peru. I'm very excited to hear about the next case, also highlighting some circular economy solutions. Welcome, Gisela.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Buenos días a todos los que nos siguen por desde la red. Un gusto participar con ustedes, and I want to share some of our experience here in Peru. Well, have you, most of us, ever wondered if people in rural population would be willing to pay for sanitation or wastewater treatment if they don't pay for water? So in Reque, a rural community of more than 2,000 people in northern Peru, we decided to face its situation with a different logic. What if we let nature do its part? Not with concrete, but with live plants, with living plants, with totora, an artificial wetland, regenerative, silent, and deeply adapted to the local environment. A nature-based solution designed for contexts where paying to treat wastewater is not an option, but treating is a necessity. In Latin America and in Peru, many wastewater treatment plants discharge millions of cubic meters of untreated wastewater daily. But the rural is different. Lower population density, we are a big country, but with very pure density. That means higher investment per capita, low or non-existent tariffs, not enough money to operate water systems. This is another challenge for us. Poorly adapted urban models that don't survive off the city. Gray infrastructure, as my previous panelists have said before, such as oxidation ponds or in-house tanks, but has never been maintained for different reasons. That means that they smell really bad all over the country. And then two myths arise. First, rural wastewater treatment is not viable in the country. Second, that wetlands are only valid for very small communities. In Reque, we decided to break both. We designed a wetland for more than 2,200 people at the top of its theoretical capacity, not because it was easy, but because in that operation limit, the future of rural sanitation was defined. And what we discovered was that it's a simple solution, but not a minor one. It's alive, but not improvised. It's local, but with lots of potential. Thanks to the rehabilitation of oxidation ponds and the installation of thousands of aquatic plants of totora reeds, the ancestral plant of the Andes mountain, more than 200 cubic meters of wastewater are treated daily with national standards today. That water not only stops polluting, but it is now reused with confidence for the irrigation of crops and parks. And the results are tangible. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. In just 1 week, the rancid smell of the bad smell disappeared for the community, and it was impossible not to notice the change. This change caused the attention of the whole community, and they started paying for this service because everyone deserves and wants to have a better quality of life. This is the difference. It's improving quality of life for the people. 75% efficiency from the first phase, and it's still increasing. This is a living, adaptable, and replicable solution. A technology that works with nature, not against it. And the most important thing we learned was not technical, was that the heart of the project was the community. We trained the local operation in not only wetlands, but only in wastewater management. With the support of Grundfos volunteers, which was the main funder for this project, the main donor would carry out key cleaning and maintenance tasks, not only for this community, but also for the nearby communities. And the knowledge remained in the city, in the community in Reque. And the community not only learned, but also improved and appropriated the solution. And something else changed. At the beginning, as is often the case, sanitation was not a visible priority. But when the system started working, the perception changed. People began to care, to operate, and to value what previously seemed impossible, paying for it. How much they pay? They pay slightly more than what they pay for water. And people began, and then the impact became apparent. This model works because it activates human capacities together with efficient natural solutions. Of course, not everything was perfect. One of the biggest challenges has been the lack of accredited laboratories in the region to analyze key microorganisms, and the other was how to achieve financial sustainability on this productions unit. Although the wetlands operational cost, everybody knows here, is low, the difference is that since the oxidation ponds didn't receive any maintenance, it was challenging because you have to compete with zero in tariffs. But even it was challenging, the community accepted the tariff without hesitation. I know. The most important lesson learned here was that this project not only has worked, but also demonstrated that nature-based solutions are more scalable than anyone can imagine. It enables community acceptance, is a lower cost efficiency ratio, translates into higher probability of sustainability, and also, if this were possible in Reque, why not in hundreds of other communities across Latin America and across our country? That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gisela. Another impactful example also showing not only that nature is at the heart of a project, but also the communities, right? Thank you. Last but not least, our next speaker is Todd Gardner, Director of Cities for Forests and Natural Infrastructure Initiative at the World Resources Initiative. Welcome, Todd.
How's everyone doing? Late in the day? Jet lag still hitting everybody? All right, energy, there you go. I appreciate that. Thanks to the IDV and the co-conveners for the opportunity to be here and kind of leverage many of the comments and lessons that my co-speakers presented on thus far. I have the pleasure to talk about a really exciting case study that we've been involved with partners in Campinas, and really how we've looked to connect science and policy to unlock investment to really drive NBS at scale for both water security, but also thinking about a lot of the co-benefits, both ecologically and socially. Has anyone been to Campinas in Sao Paulo State? All right, well, you got to put it on your bucket list. It's amazing food, great people, incredible culture, only, if you will, kind of bettered by the beauty of the watershed. However, it's not all good news. Over the last couple of decades, over 70% of the native vegetation has been lost or degraded. And that's had a lot of implications for water security, most notably an extreme increase in sedimentation rates and an exponential increase in the cost of operations and treatment for the downstream water utility. They're losing capacity in their reservoirs, the cost of treatment, sort of the wear and tear on their infrastructure is making it harder to operate and will lead to much bigger capital costs down the road. It also has led to more frequent and severe flooding, both watershed riverine flooding, but also urban flooding as well, as we've lost sort of the functionality of the trees and vegetation to slow down the water during heavy precipitation events. It's a big challenge and unfortunately getting worse. And so we really tried to think about a holistic approach that could deal with both the watershed degradation and even the tree canopy loss and increased flooding within the urban center itself. And so, like many of my colleagues described in their presentation, we started with the science and thinking about the connectivity from the top of the watershed down to the city center. And what were the hectares that had the greatest bang for the buck if we restored and protected the remaining vegetation that would reduce sedimentation and lead to the greatest flood control benefits? Once we had a pretty good handle on the different kind of prioritization phases, we then needed to understand what the economics look like. Could we make a compelling business case to the water utility and other city agencies that it was worth going and being proactive to restore the system? And we were able to recognize that just on sedimentation alone, proactively restoring those highest priority acres was likely to lead to about a $1.5 million a year USD cost savings for the utility over a 10-year period. So real money that they could then think about investing in other key priorities. The science and the economics are important, but at the time, there wasn't necessarily the policy frameworks in place to institutionalize an NBS and green-gray approach. So we thought about what public-private partnerships would look like, how different agencies across the cities could work together, and how we could really make NBS the new way of doing business. We did each of those analyses in 3 consecutive years, building on themselves, which led us to the local climate action plan, which really focused on the funding and financing piece. Having the science, having the studies, having the frameworks is great, but where does the money ultimately come from? And at the watershed scale, we started by thinking about how we build on so many of the other incredible examples across LAC and other parts across the globe that we could contextualize to the Campinas reality. And over the last 18 months, we've put together a PES program that has led to over 170 landowners receiving either financial assistance and/or technical assistance to protect and restore their land. And we've just launched a large-scale impact monitoring program based heavily on satellite imagery to really track tree growth over time and begin to understand what the reduction in sedimentation might look like. This was funded in part by Microsoft, who was very keen on seeing what the next level of scaling will look like alongside our partners at Conservation International. On the urban side, we've been able to unlock over $10 million from a municipal environmental fund, from royalties from the hydroelectric production and oil and gas revenue, as well as some philanthropic dollars, allowing us to put bioswales, linear parks, increasing the urban tree canopy, and we've already begun to see a reduction of the impacts of flood events. It hasn't quite been long enough to make any conclusions, but at a minimum, we're seeing a much deeper connection with the local community with green infrastructure and buy-in, wanting to see more trees planted in their neighborhood. The PES program in the watershed and the initial urban green infrastructure has been successful. They've both around the $8 to $10 million of implementation, but we really need to think about how we cross those ecological thresholds to dramatically reduce floods and the sedimentation flows. And this is where the idea of thinking about co-benefits and monetizing them comes to play. In the watershed context, that primarily is through a carbon crediting program, which we've begun to develop and anticipate formally launching in 2027. We have the baseline information, we have the crediting protocols in place, and we have buyers, primarily corporate, at the table. We anticipate that we can likely double the revenue flowing to the watershed restoration program through carbon credits by the early 2030s. And in the city, we're thinking about leveraging the investments primarily focused on reducing flood control to focus on urban heat. Last year, there were over 100 days above 35 degrees Celsius in Campinas, and if you look at the projections, it's only going to get worse. Admittedly, heat is a very disaggregated benefit, and so there's a lot less experimentation to date around where the resources are going to come from to leverage heat risk reduction from a suite of different beneficiaries and interested parties, but we recently received an award from the Wellcome Trust out of the UK to begin playing around with different paradigms and approaches. And even if it's just philanthropy, or even if it's just building it into the municipal budget, which seems quite likely, we feel confident that we can raise 7 figures a year to continue along this journey of urban green infrastructure for both water security, heat, and other core benefits. Campinas has been a critical partner throughout this process. Nothing that we've done has been sort of in the back room and then showing them the analysis. Everything has been done hand in glove and really making sure that we are answering the questions that are going to influence their investment decision. Campinas is one of over 90 cities that is part of the Cities for Forests initiative that I have the privilege of leading globally. Over 20 of those cities are in Latin America and the Caribbean. And if you want to do some learning before you go to the IDB drinks tomorrow night, a little teaser this same time, maybe even the same room, I'm going to be highlighting some case studies from Bogota, from Jalapa, Mexico, and from Maranguape, Brazil. So really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today and look forward to the next part of the conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Todd. I really liked also your little, narrative that showed signs to policy, to investments, to implementation. I will steal that narrative for another discussion. Thank you. Maybe now I will ask again all the speakers, and I will actually, there you go, perfect. So myself, you're stuck with me today, so here I am still. Everybody else, I would like to join Giovanni, Lisette, Natasha, Michaela, Gisela, and Todd on the stage for a panel discussion where we will hear more about their cases and the lessons learned, trying to dive a little bit deeper, and welcome everybody. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause so we know you're still with us. Okay, it's cozy and crowded here, but I will have direct questions. We tried with one round and we see how we are in time. So then we can see maybe if we can dive a little bit deeper. So my first question I would direct to Giovanni. Bueno, en español, en inglés, los dos, aquí estamos, ¿no? En bilingüe. First of all, Aguas Firmes has demonstrated the power of public-private partnership. How did this partnership enable sustainability through nature-based solution? ¿Cómo permitió esa alianza impulsar la sostenibilidad a través de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, ¿no? Podías contarnos en 2 minutos máximo, así que, ¿qué son como lecciones que quisieras destacar? Gracias.
Gracias por la pregunta. Así como lo comentaba en la primera intervención, las soluciones basadas en naturaleza en conjunto con el sector público-privado nos ha permitido ampliar el panorama y la visión del gobierno. Como todos sabemos, los recursos son limitados en todas las administraciones públicas y hacer esta conjunción con el sector privado nos permite, pues justo esto que comentaba Mariana, juntar en un primer lugar $9 millones y luego juntar con Fundación Coca-Cola sumándose $14 millones. Y luego esto también permite implementar las soluciones basadas en naturaleza a gran escala. Y nos da la prioridad también de justo crear una gobernanza territorial en la que las comunidades sean tomadas en cuenta, en las que les permitamos a ellos también tomar las decisiones en qué se gasta ese recurso y que, bueno, que sepamos siempre que las alianzas público-privadas siempre son en beneficio del pueblo que más lo necesita. Y que justo, por ejemplo, en el Acuerdo Nacional por el Derecho Humano al Agua que firmó la Presidenta de México el año pasado, hemos visto cada vez cómo se suman más y ojalá sea posible las demás iniciativas que se puedan tomar de aquí en adelante sean con esa misma finalidad. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Giovanni. We heard about alianzas. I would like to take that and move to Natasha. As manager of Bogota's water utility, what instruments or alliances are most effective for strengthening water resilience in cities like Bogotá? What would you like to highlight? Thank you, Natasha.
Bueno, creo que el público no hispanoparlante se ha retirado en su mayoría, entonces me voy a responder en español. Creo que la experiencia de Bogotá, como lo mencionaba ahora, nuestro año más seco en 40 años, que nunca habíamos experimentado y que nunca pensamos que fuéramos a experimentar, pues fue una oportunidad de precisamente buscar esa cooperación internacional y no solamente buscarla, sino recibirla de una manera activa. Nosotros en plena crisis lo que recibimos fue muchas ofertas y muchas, nos buscaron todos los organismos internacionales y multilaterales a ver cómo podían apoyar a la ciudad y cómo podían apoyar al acueducto. El acueducto, así rápidamente para contexto, sirve a más de 10 millones de colombianos, tenemos 2,4 millones de usuarios, somos la empresa de acueducto alcantarillado más grande del país. Y tener que tomar la decisión de suspender el servicio una vez cada 10 días durante 24 horas a una zona de la ciudad es una decisión muy difícil. Y no podemos dejar que la ciudad vuelva a tener o a enfrentar una situación como la que enfrentamos sin estar preparado. Entonces creo que lo más importante de esta crisis que vivimos fue lograr tener ese apoyo y coordinar sobre todo ese apoyo internacional y multilateral que se materializó y se está materializando en los 7 pilares que les mostré, donde las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza son como parte de ese eje articulador de todo tiene que ir no solamente a la eficiencia de la operación, a mejorar nuestra capacidad de recuperar el agua que se pierde, de modelar de una manera mucho más predictiva, si se puede con las incertidumbres del cambio climático, nuestro sistema de abastecimiento, sino también de cómo todas esas alternativas que nos ofrece la protección de las cuencas y que el acueducto de Bogotá viene implementando desde hace décadas, pues tiene que verse de la manera de integrar la solución para una estrategia de seguridad hídrica. Creo que es importantísimo pensar en la estrategia como una respuesta de resiliencia al cambio climático y que no es solamente un pilar o un área de acción, sino que tiene que ser una estrategia integrada y así es como lo estamos haciendo en Bogotá para poder garantizar que las futuras generaciones, esto no es una cosa de este o los próximos 2-3 años, sino que las futuras generaciones no vayan a volver a tener nunca la necesidad de pasar por un racionamiento de agua.
Gracias, gracias. I switched just a little to English so we still have everybody with us. I also like how you highlighted the collaboration across different also funds and institutions. I'm happy to see also IDB's logo there and that it's a really good example of how to act facing climate change impacts and securing water resilience. Thank you. Moving to Lisette, gracias por estar con nosotros en línea. Usted tiene el privilegio de estar en la pantalla, así full. Feliz de verla en línea, así que la pregunta sería, ¿qué mecanismos han resultado más efectivos para implementar soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en el contexto transfronterizo, ¿no? Así que paso la palabra a Lisette. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Creo que una de las experiencias que mencionaba durante mi disertación inicial es esos acuerdos entre los gobiernos nacionales y los gobiernos locales para impulsar acciones de comanejo. Eso significa una responsabilidad compartida, no solo de conservación, sino también de conservación de las áreas de recarga hídrica. Un ejemplo muy claro es la tutela de la Reserva de Biosfera Transfronteriza Trifinio Fraternidad, que la compartimos con los ministerios de ambiente de los 3 países. Eso es un ejemplo claro de éxito en las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza. Otro ejemplo son iniciativas de cooperación transnacional para el manejo de la cuenca del río Lempa. Y ahí tenemos algunos proyectos de cooperación regional y alianzas público-privadas, por ejemplo, con fondos del JEF, con la alianza con OEA, con el BID, el mismo KfW. Y estas cooperaciones permiten catalizar las inversiones de los gobiernos nacionales con un impacto mayor. Otro ejemplo más reciente lo tiene el gobierno de El Salvador, por ejemplo, con la negociación de reconversión de la deuda para el manejo de la cuenca del río Lempa. Y todas estas iniciativas nos permiten fortalecer las alianzas de multisectoriales y también nos permite generar mecanismos de coordinación territorial. Por ejemplo, una mayor relación con los propietarios privados para conservar las zonas de recarga hídrica, pero también la implementación de sistemas agroforestales más sostenibles en zonas de amortiguamiento y, por qué no decirlo, potenciar las capacidades socioeconómicas de la población que protege estos recursos y que requiere tener otras alternativas de ingreso a nivel comunitario. Para nosotros es un ejemplo claro de cómo se pueden implementar las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza con estos acuerdos multinivel y multisectorial entre los gobiernos que forman parte del Tratado del Plan Trifinio.
Gracias, muchas gracias Gisela. Perdón, Lisette, así que ya estoy con la mente con la siguiente panelista, ¿no? Gisela. I switch back to English. We heard about an initiative across... Perdón, Gisela, sí. Okay. Aquí ya vamos. Yeah, we heard about an initiative across 3 borders, right? And now my question would be towards you, like, how can you scale nature-based solutions, right? And maybe you can share a concrete example from your experience in Peru. Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, we believe that we are in the process of getting the interest from the 3 sides. In terms of population, we have got the interest of all the surrounding communities and some districts across our areas of interest. So there will be demand for this type of solutions, and that is important. And the other side, we are working with the government because there is a technical entity in the country that is working, and they were thinking about a pilot project, something very similar what we have done with this project. So we believe, and we are concreting an MOU with them to start the escalation processes with them. And also, we are trying to promote some the private sector to the equation, because this one lesson learned. Another lesson learned from this is that the waters, the new treated waters, get the interest from another private companies. They want the water. They're very close for this from this area. There was a cemetery, and the cemetery needs water, and they are now negotiating with the community the availability for paying for this this now treated water, and we are promoting that this amount of money will help this production unit. So we start a very interesting process, sustainable, but also replicable. And that is what we are working now. That is a very interesting process now for us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's like music to my ears. Applicable and scalable, those are great words. Maybe moving now to Micaela. You've highlighted connectivity as a key adaptation pathway in the Amazon. Why do you think connectivity is so central? And what is the evidence that you see of its impact, right, of your strategy and the approach you presented?
Yeah, thank you, Shakofa. So like science told us that like connectivity is key to keep ecosystems healthy, and it's also like connecting different landscapes. So something that I didn't mention is that in their study, we divided the Amazon basin in 12 different landscapes because, as we know, like it goes from pretty much like 0 meters above sea level until like 6,000 or so. So I think that connectivity is key to keep these landscapes connected. So from the Andes Amazon to the Brazilian Amazon. And then also, I mean, when we talk about evidence, like we have a lot of community monitoring systems that have proven to show that this connectivity is very important because in discharge zones, for example, like they are measuring water quantity and water quality, and if we are achieving this so ideal connectivity, we're being able also to transport sediments and like make sure that the water quality could be like could be remain or could be kept the same way. So I would say that connectivity is like key for healthy ecosystems, but it's also impacting biodiversity and the well-being of different people that depend, for example, on fisheries and water resources.
Thank you, Michaela. And now, Todd, all pressure's on you. Last question of this round. Let's see. So your work emphasizes the business case for nature-based solutions, right? So myself at the intersection of climate, water, finance, I would love to hear from you now. What elements are needed to secure sustained engagement from cities and investors in mechanisms such as the payment, right, like ecosystem services that you just presented?
Thank you. Maybe I'll say three things. The first is do the analysis hand in glove with the decision makers and be really honest about what you know for sure, what you think, and what you have no idea about. And it's way better to be conservative with the impact that the NBS is going to have than overpromise the benefits and undersell the costs. And nature is dynamic. There's a lot that we don't know. And the more the utility or the investor can be part of the process and understand where all the assumptions are coming from, the more likely they're going to buy into the end result. Second thing that I would say is have an idea around what the kind of political window of opportunity is, and really try to orient the timing of the communications around the report to where there's a realistic opportunity to move things forward. And we've learned the hard way that you can have the most perfect analyses, and if the champions aren't there, it will go for naught. The third thing is sort of start pragmatically. How can you demonstrate success on the ground, walking and crawling, while at the same time have a clear pathway for scale. Random acts of conservation sometimes make us feel good, but they're not going to get us to actually deal with the challenges that we have. And so how can you demonstrate that there is a pathway to scale in a meaningful time frame?
Thank you, great. Maybe in the interest of time, I will just do a quick round of one core key message that you would like to leave the audience with. So if you had to highlight, a term, a concept, a key message, what is it that you want to share with the audience today after, presenting all these impactful cases? There's a lot of lessons to be learned across, right? But if you had to highlight what is most impactful to you, what would that be? I start with Giovanni.
Thank you. Yeah, well, en México tenemos la oportunidad histórica de poder transformar muchas vidas en muchas comunidades a través del Acuerdo Nacional por el Derecho Humano al Agua. Soy muy reiterativo con esto porque este es el mecanismo que hemos encontrado en el país para articular de mejor forma las relaciones entre el sector público y el sector privado. Los esfuerzos por sí solos del gobierno no son suficientes y los esfuerzos por el sector privado tampoco son suficientes, pero si unimos esfuerzos, articulamos y proyectamos hacia un mismo sentido, es posible que podamos resarcir los daños que hay en las comunidades por falta de acceso al agua, ¿no? Aproximadamente en México hay 5 millones de personas que no tienen acceso al agua. Entonces trabajamos constantemente con todas las agrupaciones como Grupo Modelo, Fundación Coca-Cola y muchísimas más empresas de talla internacional con la finalidad de poder cubrir esas necesidades básicas y garantizar el derecho humano al agua en cantidad y calidad suficiente.
Ok, gracias. Entonces yo digo el derecho al agua, porque la idea era un concepto o una palabra, derecho al agua.
Yes.
Ok, mensaje clave, gracias. Mensaje clave, Natasha, perdona. Can you give us one sentence, one key concept?
Sí, fundamentalmente creo que hay que tener la economía circular como base de la estrategia de resiliencia frente al cambio climático. No podemos solamente enfocarnos en un área, tenemos que integrar dentro del concepto de resiliencia del foco de las Américas, que es en lo que estamos, la necesidad de introducir la economía circular como parte de ese trabajo.
Perfecto, me encanta. I have a passion for circular economy, so great to hear. I know Bogotá is working a lot on implementing strategies. Gracias. Lisette, paso a ver si nos puedes dejar, y todavía más breve que los demás, un mensaje clave o una frase. Adelante.
Creo que en estos procesos los mecanismos de gobernanza transfronteriza son una esperanza para la implementación de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en zonas compartidas, la generación de confianza entre los países, los vecinos y sobre todo la reciprocidad va a permitir reducir esas brechas de desigualdad que aún tienen los países en cuanto al acceso a los servicios que generan estos bienes compartidos. Así que sigamos trabajando juntos, que es la única ruta para superar estas dificultades comunes.
Gracias. We also have a session on shared ecosystems tomorrow, so just using that as a keyword to promote the next session. Así que entre ustedes, maybe if, we can try to highlight one concept so the audience can still follow us, like just really. I know, you've been doing the business case for us, so maybe you can leave a message for us, and I just do the round here as well. Starting maybe with you, if you want to go adelante, Gisela.
Maybe I just want to point out that...
If you go a bit closer.
I just want to point out that the difference we've made is based on dignity. And nature-based solutions work with the community and with dignity to the people. That's all.
Gracias. Micaela, leaving you with a very impactful word, dignity. What would you like to highlight as a concept?
I would say that it's also an integral approach, and this would be like, where we are working geographically, so the whole basin vision, but then also, like as Todd was saying, like it's not only like nature-based solutions that are like scientists doing it, but like, okay, bringing the policy makers, the funders, the communities. I mean, as I mentioned, like, of course, if we don't include them, we're not gonna have like a good approach. So I would say like having like a very comprehensive approach in every single sense.
Thank you, thank you. That's wrapping it up nicely. And Todd, you, since you have been waiting all the time, the longest, you have the last word now for closing this panel.
Scale requires partnership and collaboration.
Love it. Short and sweet. So I'll let you guys off the hook, and thanks a lot for all these impactful cases. Muchísimas gracias. Check. We have 8 minutes, so maybe we can see if at the end we can collect 1 or 2 questions. Also, please, online, feel free to engage by sharing your questions in the chat function. And with this, I would pass the word. Let's see if we can get back out. There you go. Perfect. To Nicole, who will be closing our session on nature-based solutions, and who is actually gonna highlight the, now we have the right order, who's gonna highlight key messages from this discussion. And Nicole Silk is the Global Director of Freshwater Outcomes at TNC, and I'm honored to welcome you on the stage. So you have the final words. Thank you, Nicole. A round of applause.
It's hard to add much to all that was said, but I just want to acknowledge the panelists and the speakers and the presentations. There was a lot of hope and inspiration across all of that, and I hope, if anything, that's what we can all take home. But I do have a few reminders, because I'm up here. There's an urgency of now because of biodiversity loss, because of climate change, and because of the high demands on our freshwater ecosystems. We heard a lot here about freshwater being an integrator or being a connector between freshwater habitats, between biomes, so the ocean and land and freshwater, between surface water and groundwater, across administrative, jurisdictional, cultural boundaries, and economic activities too. So you can't really think about water in isolation. So therefore, nature-based solutions really do require integration. They require us to think at a system scale for creativity and in order to bring the right people together. And who are those right people? So those right people begin with those who are closest to the ground, closest to the water, the indigenous communities, the people who are living day to day with the challenges, the folks who fish from our rivers and whose livelihoods are tied to those places. They also require, of course, these sort of layers of working together from the local level to the more regional level, to national levels, and to global levels. We've heard that again and again and again. And public and private partnerships we really, really need. I really love this comment that was shared, that it's not government or the corporate sector, or frankly, or the NGO sector, or the local level, right? We must work together on the solutions. Science is critical to our understanding of how these systems work. Data and science are also so necessary for robust monitoring and evaluation too, and ultimately they inform governance and policy. And governance and policy, in turn, we need for the long-term sort of durable protection of these systems. And protection is also part of nature-based solutions. You know, we often think about nature-based solutions as being focused on restoration or being focused on management. But nature-based solutions, in the very definition, actually begins with protection. So I would encourage us all to think about how we layer that into our actions so that the investments we make are able to last for the long run, for future generations too. And then innovative finance, of course, is a really important piece of this puzzle. So in closing, as I often say, you know, the beauty of freshwater ecosystems are that they rebound very quickly when, frankly, like we let rivers be rivers and continue to connect, but they also rebound quickly when we restore them. We see that again and again, so the systems themselves are places of hope and inspiration for all of us. So that, I think I'll close my remarks.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I think that brings me also back to some of the, key messages earlier. And I told Todd I will steal his approach. So I feel what you said just really puts it back together nicely, what you've highlighted and what we've heard, from science to policy to investments and implementation, right? So I think this has been a great session to highlight the, the climate action element of this year's theme during the World Water Conference. So basically, another element that we didn't have time for before, but now, using the last minutes, feel free to scan this QR code using Mentimeter to also showcase, different approaches and pathways towards nature-based solutions and how to drive, change in the future. What do you see as the most urgent pathway or solution that you would like to highlight? We have different options here listed. I can also read you just what the question is and what the options are. From your perspective, which pathway is most critical to mainstream nature-based solutions in your country or institution? So we've heard many different approaches, but it's really like what is close to your heart, right? Like what do you see as future directions? So we have embedding nature-based solutions into national policy and planning. I see that's like 31% currently of everybody participating has voted for that one. We have developing scalable finance models, which seems very equally relevant as robust decision-making and monitoring systems, community leadership, integrating nature-based solutions with gray infrastructure as well, having, mixed approaches. And finally, advancing regional knowledge exchange and cross-border cooperation, what we heard also from one of the cases. So, I mean, this clearly shows that maybe we need, the facilitating environment, but at the same time, all these aspects are really crucial to move forward. And I'm so happy that everybody joined this discussion and we heard so many inspiring cases. So with this, I would like to close, and I will really encourage everybody to join us tomorrow at the Focus Las Americas exhibition booth at 6 p.m. So we will have a mingle, and all the burning questions that you have from today's session, you can reach out to the panelists, to all the organizations. Thank you so much, everybody. Sí.